Hello, reanimated fans. I'm H.A. Conrad coming to you from Brooklyn. Here with me, as always, is my intrepid co host, Stuart Tiffin. Hello, Stuart.
G'day, mate.
Good morning. Good morning. And we are here to talk today about episode two of Silo season two, and a few news tidbits before we get to that. One very exciting thing that I saw this week, and I got, it. I don't know what it says about me when I saw the poster art, but the poster art for 28 Years Later is out. Did you have the same, like, kind of reaction, Stuart? I was like a little giddy when I saw it.
I mean, what I really want is a trailer, so I'm a little bit like, oh, okay, yeah, cool poster.
I
I
want the
can't,
trailer, but this is so cool. I
yeah.
you know I may have to get it. It's terrible. I can't really hang this up anywhere without causing some comment. So maybe someday I will have an inner sanctum. Probably not with New York real estate these days, but a girl can dream.
Yeah.
And this looks really awesome. It gave me all the feels. Again, I think this says something about me. But I
I've
was
I've just
really
had a thought about your interior decoration options.
Mm.
You
Well,
already
we have
use a projector for your TV. Like you could just get a little projector and point it up at the ceiling or another piece of white area and have like a variety of different art. In this case,
maybe
the 28 years
that's
later poster could be
it's
among
not
them.
it's not quite the same.
Yeah.
And we also have remember the history of horror films, that kind of awesome poster art that we both have. Um, I have not been able to put that up anywhere. I have
Wait,
a lot
which
of
one was that?
that was the whole it's like all the different
Oh,
movies.
yeah. I haven't
Um,
hung that up since I moved offices, but I'm actually it's right here next to me. That's a really good poster.
that is an amazing poster. So I have a lot of dark artwork that probably can't go up on the wall.
Yeah,
Um,
once I had like, a wife and kids, I had to retire all my HR Giger
hmm.
framed pick pieces that were just way too disturbing. A lot of like pierces. Yeah.
Terrify children and
Yeah.
whatnot. So, anyway, I'm excited to see this. I would also like to see a trailer, but I suspect it's coming. I think they're going to play this out and tease this to the utmost level that they can, as they have been all along. So, I think stay tuned for that. But I am very excited about this. So we shall see. Um, so yeah, I will stop gushing about the poster art.
What do you think
Did
of the tagline for the movie?
um
It's
that
at the bottom there. Time didn't heal anything.
well, I mean, did we really think it was going to heal something? We knew.
Well, the
We
fact that they're
probably,
making another movie could have suggested nothing,
I
not
mean,
okay.
to me, this is stating the obvious because
But when you think about the end of the first movie, they're like, the infected were all dying out, and everything was turning back to okay again. But yeah, we're gonna find out that that's not the case. I'm excited to find out more about the plot, but I like that this little tagline kind of piques my interest.
eh, I think it's fine. What would be funnier is if it was like totally like a pastoral cinematic thing and no zombies whatsoever, no walkers whatsoever, and it was like, oh yeah, we just obliterated the whole thing, right? Just saying that would be also hilarious. But that's not what they're gonna do.
That
So
it's just like a family drama instead of a
yeah,
horror movie.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and they like
you
make
left the gate open to the pasture again.
one mention of some kind of a virus and that it's been obliterated. That would be awesome. But anyway, not really, but it's fun to dream about it. But anyway, the next we have a few other releases coming up, and this next one that we saw is incredibly long, and I don't know that I need to see this movie now that I've seen
No,
the
what's a
trailer.
show? I think it's a
With
limited
the show.
series. Yeah, this is it's coming from MGM Plus, so I think it's a streamer only, and it's not about zombies, and it's not really, I don't think, horror, maybe, but it is dystopian, and so that's why I pointed it out to HA. I don't think we might watch it, but I don't know that it would be reanimated material. But then again, who knows? And this is
Well,
the show's called Earth Abides.
it's got a lot of viral something in there.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. zombie per se, but much more of the survivalist post-apocalyptic kind of thing. Lots of wild animals. And
Yep.
just, if you're afraid of snakes, don't watch the first part of this because that was thing for me. Um, and pretty realistic.
Yeah.
I say it was very
Um,
exciting.
the trailer, as you said, is very long, and the longer it goes on, the more it feels like The Walking Dead in a way. Just with the like, the community, like Alexandria versus everybody else they ever run into, sort of story lines.
Do you
Uh,
feel like with a trailer like this, just because of how long it is and how much they give away in it, do you feel like I feel like they didn't leave enough, I don't want to say mystery, but enough for people to be excited to learn about it? Because it does feel like
yeah.
they kind of gave everything to you in this trailer.
It,
Maybe
it yeah, you see like a child completely grow up in the course of this trailer. So yeah, I think that kind of that gives you a little bit too much. But also there are some time jumps, I think, even in the pilot. So this show might deal with that a little bit, and I don't know. Yeah, I think they could have cut it off right as they see more survivors after that first part of the trailer. But I think it looks good. I want to check it out, and I will be looking at that in the future.
samesies, but things that I'm not quite as excited about, though sort of excited about. There is the announcement Rippy the Kangaroo is going to be coming out on December 30th. Um, and so I should we watch it? I think we probably should. I mean, Michael
Um,
Biehn,
yeah, Michael Bean. There right there, that alone.
I know.
I mean, I'm still not super pumped about his turn in The Walking Dead. It was too brief, and he didn't get to shine the way we know he could. But maybe he'll do better alongside a CGI slash practical effects zombie kangaroo in this film.
We shall see. We shall see. He always brings it though, and so
It
I,
does.
I am pretty excited about this. To see him in, it's always good to see him. Um, and then we also have the Kate Blanchett movie Rumors, the trailer. But it is in theaters, so I would say probably limited release because I don't know that I have seen.
And I hadn't heard about this. It might just be in Australia in theaters, but it came out yesterday. This looks really interesting. It's supposed to like some of the quotes from Kate Blanchett in interviews are like, "It's on purpose that we made it this stupid." Like it's a satirical film
Yeah.
about the leaders of the G7 having a summit and a zombie outbreak happening. And it looks like it's a really tight kind of focus on just these idiots. Sorry, that probably is a little too unkind, but these world leaders and how they in a like almost in a vacuum are dealing with the end of the world without like the machinery that they're used to being able to command. So I think that it's going to be pretty funny. Like Kate Blanchett is playing the Chancellor of Germany, and then it looked like Charles Dance was the American president. He had a U.S. flag as a napkin, but I don't think he was doing an American accent. So I'm not sure how the how the hell they're going to do that part. Um,
I do not know.
but cool looking, funny looking cast, or yeah, definitely a cast with the capacity for humor. And some of the clips in the trailer looked very funny.
Hmm. So I will say I just did a quick search and it was out in October. So I
How
guess
do you
I
like
missed
that?
that.
Maybe they
Um,
were at a festival.
maybe. So that's possible. But anyway, I'm sure we will be able to watch it via some kind of streaming platform at some point. But anyway, we'll maybe check that out later. It does look dumb, so I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, but still pretty amazing cast. So
Yeah,
I would watch Alicia Vikander in anything, and Kate Blanchett too, for that matter. So gotta maybe check that out later. Um, all right. And then there was a review of werewolves. And so that we had talked about a little bit about that. And I guess they're sort of making it akin to zombies, just in terms of like the viral aspect of it. Um, so that I don't know. Wait, I still am gonna probably see this as terrible as it looks. So it's like I don't know how you feel about it, but it looks so ridiculous. I think I have to see it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, both on both counts. I agree that it looks ridiculous. I don't have very high expectations. I will
Yeah.
100% see it. And I hope that I enjoy it, but who knows? We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and they keep saying it's like werewolf as zombie, so I don't know what that means exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Um, that's a
I mean,
little.
maybe it's like the strain kind of did vampires as zombies in
Oh,
a way,
maybe,
right?
maybe. But anyway, it's ridiculous, and so I definitely have to check this out, and so we shall probably review this at some point. We have a long list of things to review.
Yeah, we
Um,
really do. I'm starting to feel the weight of that. But also, I know how bad the rest of the year can be, so I'm also happy to be sitting on a
I
mound of
mean,
treasure.
we could do a marathon and just get some of these out of the way. Also, I do want to point out, so I don't know if you've seen any of the previews or the Nosferatu. Um,
Just the art. I have been trying to not see too much because it does look pretty cool.
okay, well, just in time for Christmas, that is released on Christmas Day. I'm pretty excited to see that. That's my kind of holiday movie.
Yeah.
So I think we have to also
Yeah.
make space for Nosferatu.
It's on the list. It's one of many.
I know, but I'm just putting it out there. Maybe we need to have this take a jump in the queue. But in the meantime, I am really excited to talk about Silo, season two, episode two with you. Though, and I did restrain myself. I have not moved forward.
Oh, HA, golf clap. Well done. I'm proud of you.
It was again. I have to put restrictions on myself. So,
Same here. But
um,
this episode is a real left turn from the last one, which they
mm,
kind of had to do. They couldn't keep going in that sort of like quiet, uh, Rebecca Ferguson solves all the problems thing. That was cool for one episode, but I don't think they can keep doing that. So they had to take us back to Silo. I think it's 18, right? Isn't that where they're
yep,
from?
yep. I have to say though. I did miss Rebecca Ferguson in this episode.
Yeah.
I she really does add something extra to this, and it's
She,
really honestly, and I know that they have an amazing cast, and this is an amazing cast, and
well,
they
that's what I was gonna say is like they give everybody else so much more space to kind of act and be them.
they do, but she's so cool. It's kind of
Yeah.
hard to, she's so dynamic. She is kind of like the sun in the center of all. And so this was a slower episode for me for that reason, but
Well, yeah.
I did enjoy the storytelling and I did enjoy a lot of what we saw.
I think
So
it was slow by, like intentionally, not intentionally, but it like by necessity, because they kind of have to get back to the old silo and remind you of who all these other people are and of what is happening in the wake of what what Juliette Nichols just did, right?
right.
By not cleaning and by walking over that hill, and nobody has ever seen anything like it before, and so they're all freaking out. And I thought that it was cool that they took the time to show how literally everybody in the silo was freaking out about this.
Yep. Yep.
And it was also really cool to see a few characters who barely got any screen time, or certainly not enough in season one, get to stand up and like flesh out their characters in this one. And, I'm talking about Judge Meadows, who apparently is going to be a major character. And who saw that coming in a way, right?
Yeah.
Like from last
Yeah.
season. And Shirley getting to stand up and make more of a character of herself, too. And then you've got some of the others who were more front and center before, like Walk and Knox, and Bernard, obviously, and Sims. Although it took me a while to remember Common's character's name.
Yeah. He just is very, and he's so upset that he's not going to be Bernard
Dude,
Shadow. He
that's
is
not gonna go
so,
well. That's
he's
not
so
gonna go well.
upset.
Yeah, he is.
Um,
And his wife's upset.
Everybody's upset about he's just not going to make me his shadow. So I also have to say Tim Robbins is incredibly good as a bad guy or as a conflicted bad guy. Like I think he does a great job at walking that line of being like is he doing things for the the silo itself? Is he doing things to preserve order? Like his motivations we don't totally get you, but
Do you feel that way? Because I feel like he is 100% doing things by protocol.
he is doing things by protocol, which, but it's. there's a lot going on here, including in his interactions with everybody. But he even when he's like, I do like the little exposition when he read the protocol book, which is basically like if a person doesn't clean, then get ready
Go to
for
war.
like it's like whoa. So the fact that this is even mapped out is pretty
Yeah.
interesting. But I also think that there's other things going on with him, and we see this when he's talking to um, you know,
Judge Meadows.
Judge Meadows and
Mary Meadows.
yep. And that
We think about it from Bernard's like career trajectory. Yeah, he was already a very powerful person in the silo, but then the mayor was killed.
Mhm.
Maybe he killed her. I forget how she died. Did he? She was assassinated by Sims or somebody,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. Hmm.
But then he's the mayor and the head of IT,
Hmm.
and he doesn't have a shadow, or he doesn't. He's come to not trust Sims as much.
Yep.
Um, so I feel like on a human level, that's that's scary. Like, and he doesn't have anybody to share that load with him. So if I'm being a Bernard apologist for a moment, I could see why he's doing the things he's doing in this episode and really going after an ally who isn't Sims.
Well, I also like how he has his super secret rooms all the time that he locks everything in, and
Well,
that was
it
kind
wasn't it cool to see that like that's where he was. He was in the room that
of
Juliette was trying to get into in the last episode.
yep,
So that's it doesn't
yep,
look like there's a whole lot of stuff in there. We didn't get a long view of it, but wherever Steve Zahn's character is
yep.
seems like a pretty small space.
Yes, and I did enjoy, so I enjoyed that little tidbit, and it was kind of cool seeing it, from the perspective of like a non-broken down silo, so that was cool.
Yeah.
I did also enjoy like the dynamics of like I don't it's when I'm saying that he's sort of walking the line, like I think you can also see his desperation to keep order and how tenuous that is. Um and you see it just even when he's like walking out and when everybody's sort of just absolutely disturbed by the fact that Juliet walked out and then went over the hill. That small act, the fact that she didn't clean, the fact that she went over the hill and um the repercussions of that, just the what that means to the people in the silo and why that means rebellion and why that means war. It was sort of fascinating to watch it and to watch him figure out a way to grab a hold of that, even though he says that this is still somewhat tenuous. So I thought that those dynamics were cool, and watching that play out was an interesting thing, and also why he needs Walker, not Walker, sorry, the judge,
The
whatever the judge.
judge, because her reputation was still pretty pristine in season one, even though she was a recluse and a drunk who never really didn't do her job, right?
Right.
She didn't preside over cases as you might think a judge would. I think she just stayed in her room and drank.
Yeah.
At least we never got to see her doing anything like her job, which and maybe she was because it doesn't really make sense that she could come up from 25 years of being an alcoholic and be like sharp. Like
Right.
that's not something that a lot of people can do. I mean, maybe they can, but I don't know. I've never tried it. Maybe it's easy to just be like, yes, I'm going to pour out all my moonshine and become a conniving politician really quickly. I don't know if that's totally realistic, but and she's making like clever moves too, except for the thing she says at the very end, which you're like, oh, she's unhinged, right? And when uh Robert, what's the actor who plays Bernard? You just said his name a minute ago.
Oh, Tim Robbins.
Tim Robbins, and the look he has to give her because I'm sorry to just jump right to the end, but I'm just thinking of her like arc in this episode to go from not even believing her staffer who comes in and it's like, yeah, so Juliette Nichols didn't clean and walked over the hill, and she's like, I don't believe you. And,
Yep.
and her assistant's like, everybody in the silo saw this. She's like, get
Uh,
out, just leave.
yeah. Yeah.
And she go,
Um,
yeah,
and she's like, "Oh, and by the way, I'm going to give up drinking now because of that." I don't know. Judge Meadows is interesting because, and this need, to get out of the silo that she talks about, you get a sense like maybe she's just become totally unhinged because of this. this, and look, mentally, just from a mental health perspective, living in the silo and living in this way cannot be healthy for people, and it
That's
isn't.
true.
It's part of
Yeah.
why people are so, why the things happen that they do, and why they have to keep such a tight lid on everything and control on everything. Because if people are thinking a little too hard, probably being stuck in this thing feels incredibly claustrophobic and horrible. And so. It's interesting that that's what her request is, and he does look at her like she's completely bananas.
Well,
So,
it's a weird thing in this episode that, okay, so saying I want to go out has been like a death sentence in this in this society for 140 years at least, right? Since the last uprising, if we believe the history books. But in during the course of this episode, she says it, and we're pretty sure he's not going to make her go outside, or if he
right.
does, it'll be like in a super suit.
Well,
And
it now
during
has
his speech, he
context.
says, we all want to safely go outside. Like
Mhm.
during the course of his mollification speech to like, take some of the steam out of the revolution, that's part of his appeal. And that feels like heresy. The,
Yep,
did you have that reaction when watching that scene?
I did too, but I think it just shows what desperation like how much desperation he has to tamp down these thoughts and ideas. And so I think by leaning into that and acknowledging that that's what people think, or maybe this is the longer term, like sort of gaslighting that, oh, this is our long-term plan, even though we know they've been sabotaging such a thing for years. They absolutely have the capability of going outside if they really wanted to. If they had not, the tape piece has been this, honestly, if there is one hole in this plot, it's like, why did the tape thing go on for so long, right? The faulty tape that IT was putting in place and kind of causing these people's like deaths.
Yeah,
So
and
this is
and
an
I feel like we
interesting
talked about
tactic,
this last season that the supply people had proactively been trying to improve suit durability for cleanings. Like
right?
this was not a part of the conspiracy. This, or maybe it, well, I don't, maybe I'm misremembering, but I could have sworn there was a part in the book that was like, yeah, we're really trying to make sure that these suits don't fall apart as fast, and we're
Right.
trying to like, and here's some new tape that we've developed, like so that it wasn't a conspiracy plot point. And I don't know that it plays better this way or that way. I think it's maybe a little more complicated to make everything part of the conspiracy, because as soon as he says we're trying to develop new tape for these suits, and we just watched that woman walk over the hill, and even though I'm saying she's dead, there's absolutely no proof. Why aren't more people saying, well, can I try the new tape and walk around outside and then I'll come right back in?
Yep.
Like it feels like that's an option now, but they're not gonna play that out.
Well, right. And I think there, but again, it's a fine line he's walking, and he's just hoping that people are but he also implies that maybe she's dead, that she just did this to be brave, and that she's probably dead and they're still working on it. Like there's an implication that she's not still alive. Like he knows she went over the hill, and he also knows she went into the other silo, but nobody else does
Right, because
knows.
he's watching her helmet cam for some period of time, which is what he's doing at the beginning of
Right.
the episode. And because he's doing that, he's not launching the red alert, which actually Sims does, and like co-ops the brown shirts, the sheriffs into his security force, and we get to see some of those scenes of like Hank down in the down deep,
Mhm.
trying to like calm everybody down and failing, and then Knox gets up and he tries to calm everybody down, but then runs into a roadblock in the form of Shirley because he's like,
Yeah.
Juliette was one of us. And she's like, why'd you sell her out to the cops then? And he's
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
yep, that's true. I did do that. And then Walker comes in and sprays everybody with a fire hose. And that's how she calms everybody down.
Well, I mean, I think Walker's kind of afraid for them, and she knows what the implications are, so she's
Why
trying
does
to.
she know what the implications are?
I mean, she's been there long enough that I think she understands that they're going to come and clean out like anybody who's speaking up, and that's, I mean, she's
I guess so.
definitely,
Yeah.
and she chastises Shirley and her merry band of rebels.
She does later. And I think that
But
she
and I
doesn't go to the logical conclusion of that argument.
mm,
Like she's like, well, okay, so what do you want, Shirley? And Shirley's like, we want answers. And she's like, what? They're not going to give you answers. And so Shirley's like, well, then we'll make them. And she's like, well, they know they're ready for that. They have all these raiders and guns, and you don't have any of that. But I feel like then she says, but with you guys all looking for the truth, I think there's a chance of finding out if Juliet is alive still. and I don't know that that makes any sense. And I'm just curious, like it seems like when there's a rebellion or uprising in a silo, it's kind of a binary outcome. It's either everybody dies or everybody gets crushed by the authority, which it seems like it might have happened in Silo 18 in the past, I guess. And maybe that's what she's playing off of.
Maybe. And I mean, I like she tamps down things about Juliet and basically is like she's dead. Like she's really trying to like calm things down. And I
Yeah.
think we're going to hear a little bit more from her. But even when she's um basically being like she's been arrested and she's like in the cell and talking about what the story is. And of course, we know that they're being recorded, and so that's that. But um.
That was an interesting element, right? They round up the two primary tape people, which is Walker and her buddy, who I couldn't remember her name. It was like Martha or something. Who that actor is from Outlaws, a really funny British comedy um, with Stephen Merchant. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's about a bunch of people doing community service.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but she has like a I don't know if it's a Bristol accent, I think, in that show. She's clearly British. Here, everybody has to be American. Walker's also a British actress. I think because it doesn't make sense that they would have multiple accents inside this little bunker, I guess. So otherwise, I would say let everybody have their own accent. Rebecca Ferguson, Irish. Isn't she Irish?
I think so. I
Yeah.
don't know.
But then it would just be like Tim Robbins is the only American and Common would be the only Americans in the silo, and it would they probably don't want to try and do an English accent.
Oh gosh, no, no. Uh,
Um, anyways, so
I
sorry.
feel like Common could pull it off if you really wanted to. He's pretty good.
Common, yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe again, Tim Robbins is like a Herculean level actor, so he could probably do anything. Uh, so yeah, I thought it was interesting though that they pull those two aside, and they're like colluding on their story, and it's all being recorded. And I'm wondering if what they had to say featured any at all into the how Bernard's speech went. Because maybe he was just looking for proof that it was the tape, and once they talk about it in their cell, and we see it's getting recorded on video, maybe he was like, okay, yeah, it's the tape. I'm just going to make that in my speech.
Yep,
Yeah, do you think that's how that went? It wasn't really like it wasn't spelled out precisely, but they
yep,
certainly seemed to be like, okay, and once we claim responsibility for the tape, then we're going to cut these two loose.
yep. And that way it dispels any idea that there's sabotage, but it also, honestly, it kind of continues a narrative that they are in control. So instead of it being a conspiracy and something that's been going on for years, it's like, oh no, we've worked so hard to be coming up with this solution. And so they kind of have to let like Walker go because they don't want to um they don't want to dispel the illusion that they are actually in like playing things for the benefit of the silo. And also they do know just based on what Walker has said in the cell is that she's not going to talk. Maybe Walker knows she's being recorded and says that. I don't know. But
That
they
seems like a pretty well guarded secret in the
yeah,
silo.
maybe. But I don't know. Walker knows a lot, so it wouldn't shock me if
Yeah.
she did. But I don't know. Anyway, that was interesting that they're just suddenly let loose. And even Hank is sort of like releasing them also thinks it's kind of odd. So anyway, it's
Hank, I like this character. He's constantly just kind of being like, "Well, okay, I guess now I'm doing this."
oh, I know.
He's getting yelled at by his community in the lower deep or the down deeps. He's kind of like, he's yeah, it's hard to say what his relationship. He's clearly in season one, he's like gambling with the people from Mechanical. He's like one of them in a way, but also he's separate, and he now answers to Judicial. So it's kind of interesting to see his relationship with Shirley and Knox kind of develop in this episode. Honestly, there was a lot going on here as far as like more world building and creating this community that I thought was really, really cool and fun to watch. Even though, like you said, it maybe could be interpreted as a slower episode because of the what are they doing? They're continuing the conspiracy that doesn't actually like make us feel like there's a whole lot going on plot wise. There's not like a revelation. But what we do get to see is more of like Bernard's inner working and like how he's focusing and how he's reacting to things. And I don't think we got too much of that in episode or season one, right? It was mostly kind of a an enigma who was playing Juliet the whole time. So it's kind of
True.
cool to see him being like, I need help and going to Mary Meadows.
The other thing, which I don't know if you caught or it feels like it's a thing, is they keep focusing on the water or the sinks in this, and I feel like there's something up with the water. I did read some of the books, so I have an idea of what maybe they're talking about, but um, when you
Oh,
have
give me an example. The thing
when,
I'm thinking of is when Meadows kept pouring her stuff down the sink, and I was
right,
like, oh, is something going on with that? But I don't. That was just her
right.
pouring out her booze.
Then when Sims is talking to his wife and about being upset that he's not Bernard's shadow, she goes and gets him water, and they really focus in on the sink and her filling up the water glass, which seems like they're trying to
Hmm.
prep something. So anyway, I think that that's going to come back at some point. So mark that, Stuart, and we'll see.
Okay, marked. Thank you.
Um, anyway. So I'm wondering if there's something to do with Meadows drinking and maybe something to do with the water supply that is going to be significant. But anyway, I mean, it felt slower to me. I do think that Rebecca Ferguson is such a dynamic presence, and her character is a dynamic presence. And basically, anytime she is on the scene or on like in the story, there's an incredible amount of energy surrounding it. In part just because she's always doing stuff, and as we saw in the last episode, it was almost no dialogue. It was just her doing stuff. But I do like that they gave some space for these characters to be developed, to see a little bit of their backstory. I kind of like the development with Meadows. I think she is to me, they did not develop her enough in the last season. So
Well, at all. Like, yeah,
yeah,
that's why
like
it was
she was
like a
kind of
surprise that she's gonna be suddenly a
right,
major character this season. And I think that's kind of exciting. I think
right.
also like, well, how humble. I don't know. This was the role that was written for her, but she's like, yeah, I'll do one episode in season one and then come back for like, you know, several more in season two. I just feel like that's kind of cool that the casting director or however the production works on this show was able to secure an actor in that way. You know what I mean? And same with
And
Shirley. Shirley was in what, two episodes last
yeah,
season?
yep. And she's Tanya Moody is who plays Judge Meadows, and what a presence she has. I mean, you kind of, even when she's saying things that are completely outrageous, you still think that she's got sound judgment. Maybe that's why she's such a good judge.
Yeah.
No, but and maybe that's why people in the silo have such trust behind her and why it's a big deal. Um, when she is standing behind Bernard during his statement, that gives him basically this it gives him a foundation. She's not appeared in public for years, and then she even says something, and she also, in part by saying that, gives everybody in the silo 5 credits. Like she absolutely stands behind him, and that gives him this show of strength and unity, which is what he wanted. But she's also saying things that are totally like, at least in the privacy of her apartment, to Bernard. She's like, all I want to do is get out of here. And she equates it to the Wizard of Oz. But
Yeah.
her performance is incredible. Like I'm really kind of excited to see more of her, and I want to know more about her. So that could be
Yeah.
cool.
And her and Tim Robbins just in these quiet scenes together where he's kind of desperate for her help and she's desperate in another way, but they're desperate in two very different ways. I thought those were really interesting. And seeing just her last words to him are, and she kind of whispers it to him, I want to go out.
Yep.
Um, and she's like, you know, I'll help you, but you better get me some of that good tape. I need that good tape right now. Set it aside for me and I'll help you. And then I want to get out of here. I thought it was just, and his face, like just that whole scene, really kind of grabs you. And that's the scene that makes me very proud of you for not going to episode three,
Well,
Rachel.
that's why I really wanted to go to episode 3. So, and I don't know, this actor, Tanya Moody, I don't know if you recognize her or have seen her in other things, but a very long time ago, she was in this terrible miniseries based upon the Neil Gaiman book Neverwhere. So I feel like that's maybe when I first saw her, but she's been in like a ton of things.
Yeah. I'm
A
looking at
lot of
her
a lot of
discography.
TV stuff. Like she was in Discovery of Witches, which I kind of started watching and then just didn't get through. But she was really good in that. She just has this presence that is phenomenal. So I am like very much looking forward to the rest of the season for that reason. So if anybody could fill the space that Rebecca Ferguson, this is to me, this is the counterpoint because she's this character and this acting by this actor is so dynamic, but in a completely different way. Because even in the way she's talking to Bernard and stating all the things that she's stating, there's a calm about her. There's no sort of energy or unhinged thing going on that we sometimes see with Juliette. So,
Hmm.
so I almost feel that there has to be a showdown between her and Juliette at some point.
There's going to
Um,
be some showdown because we still don't know exactly how right-minded she is,
oh, I don't think
clearly.
she's right-minded at all, but I
Yeah.
think she gives that facade of
Yeah.
right-mindedness. So,
To what
so we'll see
level?
what happens. We'll see what happens.
There's also an interesting scene, like the counterpoint to Shirley just being like kind of without any regard for her safety,
Mm,
disturbing the peace, as it were, and trying to rouse up or rile up a crowd during the speech. You've got Knox, who was Juliet's boss in the first season. She was his shadow, and was considered like a trustworthy figure in Mechanical. He's the head of Mechanical, but he also turns in Juliet to the cops at the end of the season. So, like, do we like him? Do we not? We see him go to a whole new location in the lower area. We don't know where this is. It's some kind of machine shop where everybody's working on grinders and sheet metal and doing all this. And he's talking to a new character who we've never met before. This guy with tattoos, and he's in a wheelchair. And he's
mm.
like, I have two requests for you. One is if anybody asks for you to make them weapons, just don't do it. And the guy's like, sure. And then what's the second one? And then we don't get to hear it. So I'm kind of curious what his next request is.
I thought his next request was to give him a weapon. That's really where I thought it was going, and they didn't do it. So,
No, well, they didn't even show us what it's going to be. So we'll find out maybe. The next episode, I think, is also in Silo 18. So maybe we'll find out a little more about what's going on there. And it does feel like they're kind of on a bit of a razor's edge, except for all those people are going to spend those 5 credits that the judge so graciously gave them all. I thought it was a really well put together episode. We're gonna have to see how Sims and his wife deal with his new career setback, even though he's probably like the third most powerful person in the silo.
yeah, I don't know. They seem like they're a little, I don't know, too focused on the shadow thing and not focused enough about the bigger picture. But maybe that will be dispelled as maybe they will show more a little bit later about what's going on with these two. But it does seem like he's still very powerful. Maybe there's an ulterior, not, I don't want to say an ulterior motive for being the shadow, but this feels, I feel like there's more of a story to tell here. So we shall see.
Yeah, and
Uh,
do you remember from season 1 why Bernard seems to think that Sims is not good enough to be his shadow?
um, I think, honestly, like, I think that he doesn't have a trust for a lot of people. And I think, he thinks that Sims is too cozy or holds more secrets, maybe. That was sort of my impression.
I'm
I mean,
trying to we're trying to remember if maybe it's because some of these murders that happened, and there were a number of them in season 1, that's what kind of kicked off this whole story. That and the discovery of relics that led people to think that going outside was okay. I'm wondering if Sims maybe was killing people a little too loosey-goosey in season 1, and that's why Bernard thinks not
well,
good.
I mean, part of it is I don't think Bernard trusts anybody. But I also think we're seeing a little bit of why he wouldn't make Sims his shadow in his trust in Meadows. So that's the I'm wondering if it's just because he is still holding a torch for Meadows here, and he knows that if he picked somebody else, he would never have a chance of getting her back on his side or bringing her back over.
Like
And
romantically?
So there were moments with the interaction
They
between
were
them that
standing very close together.
and it almost felt like something could happen and it didn't. So maybe that's the dynamic and maybe they'll reveal that later, but I felt like there was something like that going on. It definitely felt like there was a lot of tension
Yeah,
between them that was a lot more than platonic, just
you could
saying.
see that. How would you feel like if you were trying to rekindle your old lost love, and one of the first things she says to you on like the second date is, "I want to kill myself," or
Yeah, I mean,
I gotta get
I
out of town," you know?
and if that's the case, if he's been holding a torch for her all along, um, that because he looks terrified and devastated when she says it.
Yeah.
So we shall have to see what happens. Anyway.
He also asks her earlier on in the episode, like, what secret are you holding that has led you to this for
Mhm.
25 years? Like, what happened? But that's just going to be another thing we don't know for a while.
I know.
I
I'll
thought that
tell.
was a deft way to get a little bit of intrigue into the episode too between the two of them. But we don't have to litigate this entire every single moment in this episode, but there were a lot of great little moments, and that's part of why I like this episode a lot. It was just like these little nibbles that were so much fun. So I'm very much looking forward to episode 3.
All right, and now I am free to watch episode three that we have finished, and it's this review slash recap. You know, I can't control myself in terms of spoilers if I move on. So I'm
Stay
really
strong.
proud of myself. I'm really proud of myself.
You should be.
Um, Staying strong here. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. If you had any thoughts about this episode, things that we didn't notice, things that you agreed with, things that you didn't agree with, please feel free to drop us a line at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com.
And you can find all of our episodes online at reanimated.podbean.com. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify, all over the house. So give us a listen. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you're listening to us, and I applaud you. Well done.
Thank you so much, everybody. Adieu.
Tschüss.